The biggest fallout against the USAID scandal is the Democrats are saying we're saving children's lives and people's lives with this money. And the Republicans are saying, obviously, you're spending it on ridiculous things. Chris Coons, this is a Democrat, doing the scaremongering. And then later we're going to have Scott Bissent correct him. Welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. This is where the happy patriots are.
Is funding Sesame Street a judicious use of soft power?
Well, Michael, the way you put it is the way I hope folks considering your poll today will think about it. This isn't just funding a kid show for children, millions of children in countries like Iraq.
Pretending to be outraged about the long list of crap that this administration is cutting, federal waste and funding, like $2 million for sex changes in Guatemala, $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt, $20 million on a new Sesame Street show in Iraq.
It's a show that helps teach values, helps teach public health, helps prevent kids from dying.
Our media doesn't have enough propaganda going on over here. We're so overflowing with propaganda here that now we're sending our Sesame Street propaganda to Iraq. They made an actual Sesame Street for Iraq. I saw pictures of it. It had Grover in it, or I saw a video of it.
نعمان هل أنت في الداخل؟ يمكنك الخروج الآن فقد توقفت العاصفة. أنا هنا.
Outrageous to me that we don't have better things to do with our money. Certainly propaganda or even teaching. We're doing worldwide media now for other countries. That's the soft damage I think we're doing now. Their defense is we have to push the values over there to manipulate the children and change society. I might even agree with really good stuff. Is it pro-American?
We want to uplift and celebrate our LGBTQIA plus family, friends, and communities.
Is it talking about the Constitution? It's not talking about life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I don't see it as even American. This is Democrat propaganda, washing it through their normal Democrat propaganda, which in America was often done through Sesame Street with characters that had HIV and all that.
Rihanna, from our Sesame Street family to yours, happy Pride!
And helps push values like collaboration, peacefulness, cooperation in a society where the alternative is ISIS, extremism, and terrorism.
I guarantee you that Sesame Street show in Iraq has zero positive Jewish characters. Zero.
And to your point, it's pennies on the dollar. The U.S. Department of Defense has an annual budget of about $850 billion. USAID was spending about $30 billion. It is a small proportion of our total federal spending.
We only waste $30 billion, so it's not that big of a deal. Tell that to your average American that can't pay for eggs. Just give them the $30 billion to bring the price of eggs down. The idea that they're allowed to waste 38 billion, 40 billion, and some are estimating it's more like 60 or up to 80 billion because who knows how much money they're hiding and washing and laundering, which is also part of their business.
And as Joe Nye would often say, it's not just soft power, it's smart power. Let me leave you with one other quote, Michael, if I could. Jim Mattis, who is a 4-star Marine Corps general and Trump's Secretary of Defense in his first term, in a hearing back then said, if you slash development and aid spending, then I'm going to need more bullets for our troops.
You guys know, you can tell me in the comments below. Do you think our money that we spent and American blood of our youth that we spent in Iraq and Afghanistan, what did it get us? I'm not an isolationist at all. I get we have to do building in other countries. And I believe in the American charities have done incredible good work in Iraq and Afghanistan, but I was a pro-Bush, wave the American flag, rah-rah Afghanistan and rah-rah Iraq. I was there to support the whole thing. I still think there could be a lot of really good Western ideals that we planted there just by killing off dictators. But the big conclusion that I think almost all of us learned was it did not go well. It was not worth the expenditure of hardware. We killed a lot of them, they killed a lot of us, and they're still a ass backwards thinking world. It's basically I'm not going to take a vacation in Iraq. Are you? What we learned is that cultural manipulation of other countries is a lot harder than we thought it was. And that the Bush administration, and perhaps all Americans, were a little naive when we thought that we could bring the Constitution to Iraq. I still believe that that is the only correct answer is to bring freedom to every person in the world. The question is it ever effective? Can you actually install freedom in a place like Russia or China? Can you get them to ever construct anything like what's going on in America, or are we unique? I think what we learned is we're unique and that you can't export this stuff. Let's go to our next clip. This is Scott Bissent on defending what our Doge people are actually doing, because there's a huge conspiracy over there right now that we have these 4 18 to 24-year-old autistic kids going in and taking everyone's social security numbers. That's what Chuck Schumer accused them of, which is, of course, false. This is Scott Bissent on defending that many of the Doge people are actually members of the Treasury already. So it's not like an outsider coming in, it's an insider doing an audit.
Mr. Secretary, we are inside the cash room at the Treasury Department. It is almost impossible to overstate how important the work that is done in this building is to the U.S. financial system. Yet right now, there is widespread concern about the Doge team's access to sensitive payment systems. Are you worried at all that that access and that tinkering of the payment systems could affect the Treasuries market or cause any disruption?
Good. Well, Saleha, thank you for asking me about that, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, when you say the Doge team, these are Treasury employees. It is 2 Treasury employees, one of whom I personally interviewed in his final round. There is no tinkering with the system. They are on read-only. They are looking. They can make no changes. It is an operational program to suggest improvement. So
you can almost end this video right there. Scott Bissent, U.S. Treasury Secretary, has already told you they're allowed to go in and look. Read-only, that's what read-only means. You know, it's a different access to files. You can put a lock on a file and you literally cannot change it. They're not capable of copying, changing, removing. They're only capable of read-only. They can only look and, like he said, make notes. And that kind of transparency is what's making the Democrats freak out and lie to you, that makes it sound like they have more access than that.
We make 1.3 billion payments a year. And this is 2 employees who are working with a group of longstanding employees.
The letter that the Treasury Department sent earlier this week talked about how the team currently does not have access to change the system. Have they at any point this year had the ability to make changes?
Absolutely not. This is no different than you would have at a private company. And by the way, the ability to change the system sits over at the Federal Reserve. So it doesn't even lie in this building. So they could make suggestions on how to change the system, but we don't even run the system.
It's purely exposure. And they don't want them to expose anything. I don't get it, because the media ran with this all week, that they're manipulating the system, they're changing the system. It's dangerous to give them access. They're merely exposing facts, and they're 2 guys. It's the tiniest team looking out of millions of transactions, and they're using AI to run the numbers on these giant spreadsheets. And the AI looks for redundant payments, say to the same address, which would be a form of fraud if they're able to pump the system twice. And they're finding billions of dollars of fraud and waste so far that they've flushed out of each of these agencies. They've just now announced that today they're looking at FEMA next. So we know that they've already looked at the Department of Education. Democrats freaked out that they looked. Then they go to FEMA next. Democrats freak out that they looked. They're at the Treasury. Democrats freaked out that they looked. What are the Democrats hiding? You guys can let me know in the comments below what you think of that. I have a feeling
And if they ask for, if they request the ability to change the system, would you grant that?
No, again, they have no ability to change the system. I have no ability to grant that change. That they can make suggestions, then it would go to the Federal Reserve, and just like any large ERP system, there would be tests, there would be this, there would be that, and then the Fed will determine whether these changes are robust or not.
This is the third time he's answered the same question, and the third time she's asked it. Did they change the system? Have they ever had the chance to change the system, implying that now he's lying, like they took away their access to change the system? No, they never had the system change. Well, where's the system change coming from? And he goes, it's not even in this building. They have no ability to change the system. This is the third time she asked, third time he answered.
As the Secretary of Treasury, you also oversee the IRS. Do you know what kind of access the team has to IRS data or individual taxpayer data?
And that's the fourth way she has asked the same question. They're going to go into the IRS. Yes, they are. Can they change the system? I want you guys just to guess with me right now. What do you think the answer is going to be?
Well, I'm glad you asked that too, because look, the IRS, the privacy issue is one of the biggest issues. And over the past 4 years, we've seen a lot of leaks out of there. The IRS systems are quite poor. When I started in college in 1980, I learned the program in COBOL. I think there are 12 different systems at the IRS that still run on COBOL, but as of now, there is no engagement at the IRS.
And if they request that access, would you sign off on that request?
They haven't, so we'll take that when it comes to it. I think there is a lot to do there, but the president was elected with a big agenda, and to the extent that getting the IRS in better shape is part of that, sure. Because look, with the IRS, what am I concerned about? I am concerned about collections, I'm concerned about privacy, and I'm concerned that the system is robust,
but do you
and
think,
customer service.
But do you think that if they ask for access, that is something you would consider signing off on?
Fifth time, fifth question, fifth time. The paranoia is clear. They still think they're going to have 4 21-year-old autistic geniuses that are there just to expose stuff. She's still afraid they're going to get access. They're putting it out there in the field. And no matter how many times they tell them they're not, hypothetically, I don't see how they'd gain access to the IRS. They would just let them look.
There are a lot of things I'd consider, but look, we're in the middle of the tax filing season right now. We even, with the government buyouts that expire at midnight tonight, we have been mandated that the IRS customer-facing employees, that they're not eligible for that until May 15th. So I don't imagine anything's going to go on at the IRS until then or beyond.
And if they do, I'm confident they're not going to do what Bloomberg, this Bloomberg alleged journalist keeps asking him of. They're trying to put out there that they have access, dangerous access, these kids, unfettered access. They're gathering up, Chuck Schumer earlier said they're gathering up your social security numbers and your financial banking data. Completely made up, guys. So I hope Scott Bissent has helped to set us all straight against all the paranoia. And I hope we can stop funding Sesame Street in Iraq. I'm Doug in exile.